Restoration begins in surrender because there comes a point in every believer's life where holding on becomes more painful than letting go. You can try to control every outcome, plan every step, and fight against every loss. But at some point, Allah will show you that peace is not found in control, it's found in submission. The moment you release your grip on what you can't change and place it entirely in His hands, something shifts within you. The fear that once consumed you begins to fade, replaced by a quiet trust that Allah knows what you do not. You stop chasing explanations and start embracing faith. Surrender is not weakness, it's strength in its purest form. It takes courage to say, Ya Allah, I don't understand, but I still trust you. When you let go of your limited understanding and choose to rely on His infinite wisdom, you open the door to divine intervention. That's when you start to see that the delays were not rejections, they were protection. The disappointments were not punishment, they were redirection. Every unanswered prayer was not ignored, it was saved for a better time. When you surrender, your heart finds stillness in the storm. The chaos around you no longer shakes your soul because your faith becomes your anchor. You begin to realize that peace was never in the circumstances, it was in your connection with Allah. You may still cry, you may still hurt, but deep inside, there's a calm assurance that you're being carried by the most merciful. You stop asking, why me, and start saying, guide me. That simple shift changes everything. There's something profoundly beautiful about reaching that point of surrender after struggle. It's the moment when your soul finally breathes after being suffocated by worry and doubt. You stop wrestling with what's already written and start walking with what's destined. You begin to see the wisdom behind every closed door, every detour, and every heartbreak. What once broke you becomes the very thing that leads you back to Allah. Your pain becomes the bridge to your purpose. The human heart was not created to carry the weight of constant control. It becomes exhausted trying to manage what only Allah can. The sleepless nights, the anxious thoughts, the endless what-ifs, all of them melt away the moment you truly surrender. Because when you leave your affairs to Allah, He manages them with perfection. He aligns what you cannot align, fixes what you cannot fix, and writes what you could never imagine for yourself. Surrender transforms the way you see everything. You start recognizing blessings even in moments of loss. You learn to be grateful not only for what Allah gives but also for what He withholds. You understand that if He took something away, it was never meant to stay. And if something hasn't arrived yet, it's because He's still preparing you for it. That realization fills your heart with patience and your soul with light. There's a quiet dignity in surrender. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's peaceful. You don't need to announce it to the world. You simply begin to walk differently. You stop panicking over tomorrow because you know who controls it. You stop comparing your path to others because you know Allah's timing is uniquely designed for you. You stop fearing what's next because you've learned to trust what's written. When you surrender, your doer changes too. You no longer beg for outcomes, you ask for alignment. You no longer plead for what you want, you pray for what's best. You stop measuring success by how much you achieve and start measuring it by how close you are to your Creator. And that closeness brings a type of peace the world can't give and can never take away. The people who have truly surrendered are not those who have everything, but those who have nothing yet feel content. They've learned that control is an illusion and that peace comes only through trust. They've faced loss and still smiled. They've endured pain and still said, Alhamdulillah. Their strength is not in what they hold onto, but in what they've released. They've discovered that when you let go of the world, Allah fills your hands with what's meant for you. Every moment of surrender becomes a moment of transformation. It's not something that happens once. It's a continuous journey of letting go, trusting, and submitting again and again. Each trial you face invites you to surrender deeper, to release more, to believe harder. And in that journey, your faith grows, your heart softens, and your soul begins to rise. You start to see life not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of divine love and wisdom. Every trial has a purpose, though in the middle of pain it's hard to see it. When life suddenly changes and everything you relied on begins to fall apart, your heart whispers questions that have no immediate answers. You may feel abandoned or forgotten, wondering why Allah allowed such difficulty to touch your life. But every hardship carries a hidden wisdom. Every test is a message wrapped in patience, designed to awaken something deep within you. Trials are not random. They are chosen specifically for you, according to your strength, your potential, and your capacity to grow. When Allah loves a person, He refines them through tests, not to harm them, but to purify their heart. Just as gold must pass through fire to be purified, your soul passes through challenges to be strengthened. You can't develop resilience without resistance. You can't grow patience without delay. You can't learn reliance without loss. The very pain that feels unbearable today may become the reason you develop a strength you never knew you had. Through struggle, Allah teaches you lessons that comfort never could. Sometimes a trial comes not to break you, but to stop you. You may be running towards something harmful without realizing it, and the trial becomes a divine barrier, forcing you to pause and reevaluate your direction. You see only the roadblock, but Allah sees the danger beyond it. He closes doors not to punish you, but to protect you. The delay that frustrates you may be the very thing saving you from destruction. In His infinite mercy, Allah allows short-term discomfort to prevent long-term harm. Trials also expose what truly lives in your heart. It's easy to claim faith when life is smooth, but true belief is revealed when life becomes difficult. Hardship strips away pretense and shows you who you really are. It teaches you humility. It reminds you that you are not in control. It brings you to your knees not in defeat, but in submission. And from that posture of humility, your dua becomes more sincere, your worship more focused, your connection with Allah more intimate. You stop talking about faith and start living it. When pain enters your life, it breaks the shell of arrogance that often surrounds the human soul. It softens your heart toward others who are suffering, and it increases your empathy. You begin to understand people differently. You speak with more kindness, you listen with more patience, and you judge less. You become gentler, more aware of the fragility of life, and more grateful for the small blessings you once overlooked. The trial that seemed like a curse becomes a tool that shapes your character into something beautiful. There are trials that come to detach you from what you thought you couldn't live without. You may have built your happiness around people, status, or wealth, and when those are taken away, you realize they were never the source of your peace. Allah uses loss to redirect your love back to Him, to remind you that nothing in this world lasts except His mercy. The moment you start depending on creation, He gently removes it so you can return to the Creator. That realization hurts, but it frees you from attachment and brings you closer to true contentment. Sometimes a hardship is not about punishment or protection, but elevation. Through your patience and trust, Allah raises your rank in ways unseen. Each tear, each sleepless night, each whispered Ya Allah is written as worship. The angels record your perseverance, your restraint, your silent faith when no one else understands your pain. These trials polish your soul and prepare you for blessings far beyond what you imagine. You think you're losing, but in the unseen realm you're being honored. There's a hidden mercy in the timing of every trial. It never arrives a moment too early or too late. It comes exactly when your heart needs to grow. Even when you feel completely overwhelmed, Allah knows the exact limit of your endurance. He never burdens a soul beyond what it can bear. The same test that breaks one person can strengthen another, and Allah knows which heart can handle which storm. This precision is not accidental, it is divine. Trials are also mirrors that reflect your relationship with Allah. When everything is stripped away, you begin to see who you turn to first, what you rely on most, and where your heart truly finds comfort. It's through hardship that many people rediscover prayer, return to the Quran and seek forgiveness. Pain becomes the bridge that leads them back home to their Creator. What felt like ruin was actually a rescue. What looked like the end was really a beginning. Every hardship you endure carries a seed of wisdom that will bloom in time. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and see how every difficulty was guiding you towards something better. You'll realize that without the pain, you wouldn't have gained the strength, the patience, or the closeness to Allah that you have now. The trial was not sent to destroy you, but to transform you from within, shaping you into someone who sees through the lens of faith and lives with a heart anchored in divine trust. Allah is always working, even in silence. There are times when you make dua after dua, and all you hear in return is quiet. You begin to wonder if your prayers are reaching the heavens or if they're lost in the wind. But silence is not abandonment. It's often the space where Allah's greatest plans unfold. When you can't see any change, when nothing seems to move, that's when Allah is arranging things behind the curtain of the unseen. His plan is not visible, but it is always active. Just as the roots of a tree grow underground before the branches reach the sky, Allah works in the unseen long before His blessings become visible. There's a divine rhythm to the way Allah moves in your life. Sometimes He answers instantly, and other times He holds back, not because He has forgotten you, but because He is shaping you. In the delay, your patience is strengthened. In the silence, your faith is tested. In the waiting, your heart learns to rely not on outcomes, but on the one who controls them. What looks like stillness to you is actually preparation. Every quiet moment is a building block of what's to come. Allah's wisdom is never rushed, and His timing is never late. When you don't hear from Allah, it's easy to let fear and doubt creep in. You start to think maybe your sins have disqualified you from His mercy, or maybe you're not worthy of His attention. But Allah's silence is never rejection. It's mercy in disguise. It's a time for reflection, for cleansing your intentions, and for purifying your heart. Sometimes He withholds answers to teach you to seek Him, not just solutions. When the world feels silent, it's often because Allah wants you to listen more deeply, not to the noise around you, but to the whispers of your soul calling you back to Him. The silence of Allah is not emptiness, it's full of purpose. Every unanswered prayer, every delay, every moment of uncertainty carries meaning. You may not see it now, but one day you will understand that the waiting was part of the blessing. Allah knows the exact time to release what is written for you. If He gave you everything the moment you asked, you would never learn the beauty of patience, nor the sweetness of trust. He withholds only to give more. He delays only to deliver better. Think of the seed buried deep in the soil. To anyone looking, it appears lifeless, forgotten, hidden beneath layers of earth. But underground, a miracle is happening. It's growing roots, building strength, preparing for the moment it will break through the surface and reach the light. That's how Allah works in your life. You may feel buried, unseen, stuck in darkness, but in that hidden place you are being prepared. The silence is not a grave, it's a garden waiting to bloom at the right time. There are seasons when Allah's response is not in words, but in peace. You may not receive what you asked for, but you notice a calm in your heart that doesn't make sense. That peace itself is an answer. It's His way of saying, I am with you. When you find yourself able to smile through pain, when you still say, Alhamdulillah, while tears fall, that is Allah moving within you. He's softening your heart, increasing your faith, and reminding you that His presence is more valuable than any outcome you seek. When you believe that Allah is working even when you cannot see it, your entire perspective changes. You stop panicking when plans fall apart because you trust the unseen hand rearranging your life. You stop begging for things to happen immediately because you understand that divine timing has its own wisdom. You stop questioning why and start saying when you will, Ya Allah. The believer who knows that Allah is moving never loses hope, even in silence, because they know that silence is just another form of communication from the divine. Every story of the prophets teaches that Allah works in hidden ways. Yusuf was thrown into a well, forgotten by his brothers, sold as a slave, yet every step of that painful journey was Allah moving him toward the throne of Egypt. Musa was placed in a river as a baby, yet that river carried him directly into the protection of the Pharaoh's palace. Every delay, every loss, every setback was Allah orchestrating something greater. The silence before victory is never wasted, it's filled with divine preparation. Sometimes Allah's movement is seen not in the things that happen, but in the things that don't. You may never know how many dangers He kept away from you, how many traps He dismantled, or how many blessings He delayed until you were ready. When you look back later in life, you'll realize that the unanswered prayers were just as merciful as the answered ones. His silence was not distance, it was protection. His delay was not neglect, it was grace. So when everything feels still and you wonder if anything is happening, remind yourself that Allah's silence is not inactivity. It's divine artistry. He is arranging people, opportunities, and moments in perfect harmony to bring forth what's written for you. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean there isn't any. The unseen world is alive with His mercy, His wisdom, and His timing, all unfolding exactly as it should. Faith over despair is the line that separates those who merely survive from those who rise. Life will always present moments that test your limits. Moments when the darkness feels too deep and the silence too heavy. It is in those times that faith becomes your lifeline, the only light that refuses to go out no matter how fierce the storm becomes. Despair whispers that you are alone, that nothing will change, that you've been forgotten. But faith whispers louder, reminding you that Allah is closer than your heartbeat, aware of every tear, every prayer, and every silent struggle you face. Faith does not mean you will never feel fear or sadness. It means you choose trust over hopelessness, even when your eyes see no sign of relief. When everything seems lost, faith steps in and says, "My Lord is with me, He will guide me." It is this quiet conviction that keeps you standing when life knocks you down. Despair wants you to surrender to the weight of pain, but faith reminds you that every hardship carries the seed of ease. Even when your strength fades, faith keeps you walking, one step at a time, through the fog of uncertainty. There is a strength that only emerges in the midst of pain, and that strength is born from faith. Despair tells you that your suffering is meaningless, but faith teaches you that every tear is counted, every moment of patience recorded, and every test designed with divine wisdom. You may not see how your current struggle fits into the bigger picture, but faith tells you it does. It tells you that the same Lord who brought you through yesterday's storms will guide you through today's trials and tomorrow's tests. Faith transforms the way you interpret pain. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" faith teaches you to ask, "What is Allah teaching me through this?" You begin to see trials as teachers rather than punishments. You start realizing that each hardship is carving away your pride, cleansing your heart, and drawing you nearer to your Creator. The more you lean on faith, the more you see how despair blinds you to mercy, while faith opens your eyes to divine wisdom hidden beneath the surface of every difficulty. Faith is not about pretending that life doesn't hurt. It's about believing that the hurt will lead to healing. When you hold on to faith, you give Allah permission to turn your pain into purpose. Despair freezes your heart, but faith revives it. It gives you the courage to face another day, to breathe through the heaviness, and to believe that what's written for you is worth the wait. Faith is not denial of reality, it's trust in the ultimate reality, that Allah never abandons His servant. Despair feeds on impatience. It grows when you demand immediate answers and visible solutions, but faith thrives on patience. It understands that Allah's plan unfolds perfectly, even when it takes time. Faith whispers that what you're waiting for is being prepared in the unseen, and that your endurance is part of your reward. The believer with faith does not panic when life slows down. They know that every delay is deliberate, that every unanswered prayer is heard, and that every hardship has an appointed end known only to Allah. Faith reminds you that the same power that governs the stars and the seas is guiding your path. When you wake up not knowing how to carry on, faith gives you the quiet reassurance that you don't need to know, you only need to trust. Despair thrives on the illusion of control, but faith releases that control, handing it over to the one who never makes mistakes. When you say Has, by Allah, Allah is sufficient for me, you silence despair and remind your soul that nothing is greater than His mercy. Despair makes you forget who you are, but faith restores your identity. It reminds you that you are a servant of the Most Merciful, chosen to endure, to persevere, and to grow. Faith turns every obstacle into an opportunity to strengthen your bond with Allah. Where despair sees a wall, faith sees a doorway waiting to open. Where despair sees an ending, faith sees a beginning written by divine hands. You begin to understand that your worth is not defined by your pain, but by your perseverance through it. Faith does not erase hardship, but it transforms how you carry it. With faith, your tears are no longer signs of defeat. They are signs of surrender. Every moment of patience becomes a form of worship. Every act of endurance a testimony of trust. Faith doesn't promise that the road will be smooth, but it guarantees that you will never walk it alone. When you hold on to faith, you carry light into the darkest places, and that light becomes your guide through the valley of despair. Faith over despair is a choice you make daily, sometimes hourly, as life tests you in ways you don't expect. It's a decision to keep believing when logic fails, and to keep hoping when the night feels endless. Faith anchors you when emotions sway, reminding you that Allah's mercy outweighs any hardship you face. It's the quiet strength that steadies your heart, the unseen hand that lifts your soul, and the inner voice that whispers even in your weakest moment that your story is far from over. Your loss is a setup for renewal, because nothing that Allah removes from your life is taken without reason. When something leaves you, a person, a dream, a comfort, your heart aches, but hidden within that loss is a divine plan. You may see only the emptiness left behind, but Allah sees the space He has created for something greater to enter. Sometimes what you think was your destruction is actually the beginning of your reconstruction. Allah never takes without the intention to replace, and what He replaces is always more aligned with your purpose, your growth, and your destiny. When loss strikes, the first thing it exposes is the depth of your attachment. You realize how tightly you were holding on to something temporary, and that realization hurts. But loss is not just subtraction, it's purification. Allah removes what no longer serves your soul so that He can prepare you for what will. It may feel like everything is falling apart, but in truth, everything is falling into place in ways you cannot yet comprehend. Every ending, though painful, carries the seed of a new beginning. Loss teaches you to detach from illusions. You begin to see how fragile the things of this world are, how people change, how time moves, how wealth fades, how plans dissolve. The things you once depended on reveal their impermanence, and though it breaks your heart, it also frees it. You start learning the art of letting go, the wisdom of trusting Allah's plan even when it contradicts your desires. In that surrender, you find something you didn't expect: peace. The peace of knowing that what left your hands was never meant to stay, and what remains is exactly what was written for you. Every loss has layers of mercy hidden within it. The same thing that makes you cry today may be the reason you smile tomorrow. Allah takes away not to punish but to protect, not to harm but to heal. Sometimes He closes doors you were desperate to walk through because He knows what's behind them. Sometimes He removes people you thought you couldn't live without because their presence would have delayed your growth. You might not understand it now, but the one who knows the unseen knows exactly what your heart needs to flourish. Loss reshapes your relationship with yourself and with Allah. It strips you of reliance on creation and redirects you toward the Creator. You begin to understand that no one can truly fill your heart except the one who made it. The pain of losing teaches you that contentment doesn't come from holding on to people or possessions, but from holding on to faith. You start depending less on external things and more on your inner connection with Allah, and that shift is where true strength is born. When you go through loss, it feels like a part of you has been torn away. But in that tearing, Allah is making space for growth, for understanding, for spiritual maturity. You may find yourself isolated, alone, stripped of the familiar, but it's in that solitude that your soul begins to heal. The silence becomes sacred, the tears become cleansing, and your heart begins to rebuild itself upon stronger foundations. What was broken is being made new, not in the same form, but in a form far purer, wiser, and stronger than before. Sometimes renewal doesn't look like gain, it looks like peace after chaos. It's the moment when you stop chasing what left and start embracing what's next. The emptiness that once scared you becomes the very place where Allah plants contentment. Renewal is not always about receiving something new, it's about becoming someone new. Through loss, you shed old versions of yourself, the ones tied to pride, to attachment, to dependence on the world, and you emerge softer, humbler, and more connected to the eternal. The beauty of loss is that it reminds you of how temporary this life truly is. You start valuing what matters: faith, sincerity, patience, and gratitude. You stop clinging to what can be taken and begin investing in what cannot be lost. Every worldly loss becomes a reminder that everything belongs to Allah and everything returns to Him. That understanding transforms grief into acceptance and pain into purpose. The tears you once cried for what left begin to turn into prayers for what's coming. Loss also deepens your empathy for others. You begin to see pain in the eyes of those around you and understand it in a way you couldn't before. Your compassion grows, your humility expands, and your heart becomes a source of comfort for others walking through their own valleys of grief. What broke you becomes your bridge to others. Your story of loss becomes a story of hope for someone else. Through your healing, you help heal hearts you never even met. With time, you begin to realize that loss was never about what you lost. It was about what you gained in return. You gained perspective, wisdom, depth, and faith. You gained the ability to see beauty in imperfection and light in the darkest corners of life. You gained a new relationship with Allah, one built not on convenience but on conviction. Every loss you endured was a quiet act of divine mercy, preparing you for the renewal your soul needed most, the renewal that can only come when everything else is taken away, and all that remains is Allah. Step into your season boldly, because hesitation has no place when Allah has already decreed your rise. You've endured the waiting, the loss, the silence, and the uncertainty, and now it's time to walk into what Allah has prepared for you. Too often, people let fear hold them back from embracing the blessings they've prayed for. They doubt their worth, question their readiness, and forget that when Allah opens a door, He also equips the heart to walk through it. This is the season where faith must replace fear, where courage must replace comfort, and where you must believe that Allah's timing has finally arrived for you to step forward. There's a moment when everything starts to make sense, when the storms you once cursed become the reason you're stronger, when the losses that once broke you become the soil for your growth. That's the moment Allah whispers to your heart that it's time. Time to move, time to rise, time to embrace what He has written for you. You can't keep mourning old seasons when a new one is unfolding right before your eyes. The chapter that once hurt you has ended, and what's ahead is not punishment, it's purpose. Allah has seen your tears, heard your prayers, and measured your patience. Now He is giving you permission to begin again. Stepping boldly doesn't mean you won't feel fear, it means you move despite it. Courage is not the absence of uncertainty, it's faith in motion. Allah never promised that the path would be easy, but He promised that He would walk it with you. Every step you take toward what He's destined for you is guided, guarded, and blessed. You may still feel unprepared, but preparation has been happening in the unseen. Every delay, every test, every moment of silence has been shaping you into who you needed to become to carry this new season with strength and humility. To walk boldly into your season, you must release the mindset of the past. You can't bring old wounds into new blessings. You can't let yesterday's pain determine tomorrow's potential. What's coming requires a lighter heart, one freed from resentment, bitterness, and self-doubt. Forgive who you need to forgive, including yourself. Let go of the mistakes that Allah has already forgiven. Carry only what uplifts you, gratitude, faith, and a deep trust that what's ahead is better than what's behind. Renewal can only happen when you create space for it. This season is not about starting over from nothing. It's about starting over from experience. You've already been through the fire. Now you know how to walk through it without fear. The wisdom you've gained is your strength, and the scars you carry are your reminders that survival was not the end goal, transformation was. You've grown in silence, matured through pain, and learned to depend on Allah when everything else failed. That growth is your proof that you're ready to step into the blessings you once prayed for. When Allah moves you into a new season, it's not just a change in circumstances, it's a change in identity. You're no longer the person who once doubted, who once settled, who once tolerated what wasn't meant for you. You've been refined through struggle, humbled through loss, and strengthened through faith. What's written for you now requires the version of you that emerged from all those lessons. So walk with dignity, knowing that everything you've been through was preparation for this very moment. Bold faith means trusting that what you can't control is still being controlled by Allah. It's walking into uncertainty with the conviction that nothing happens outside His wisdom. Even when the path ahead seems unfamiliar, faith tells you it's safe because He is leading you. Every risk taken for the sake of growth becomes an act of worship when your intention is pure. When you move forward in obedience and trust, Allah aligns the unseen in your favor. People, opportunities, and moments all begin to shift according to His divine plan. You'll notice that as you step forward with faith, certain things will start falling away: habits, distractions, even people. That's not loss, that's alignment. Allah is clearing your path of anything that doesn't belong in your new season. He's protecting your peace, refining your purpose, and surrounding you with what nourishes your soul. What once fit no longer will, and that's how you'll know you're growing. Change will feel uncomfortable, but growth always does. Every new season comes with its own tests. The blessings you prayed for will also test your gratitude, your patience, and your humility. Don't fear that, embrace it. Allah doesn't promote without purpose. If He's brought you this far, He's not finished. He's only beginning to show you what was waiting on the other side of your endurance. Your job now is to keep walking, to keep trusting, to keep showing up. Each step you take with faith strengthens your connection with the one who made the path. This is the time to walk boldly, to carry your faith like armor, and to speak life over your journey. You've seen the darkness. Now it's time to live in the light of Allah's mercy. You've cried through the nights. Now it's time to rise with gratitude in your heart. The blessings that once seemed far away are already on their way toward you, carried by divine timing and infinite mercy. All that's left is for you to take that step, not with fear, but with the certainty that Allah is moving before you, beside you, and within you.